I finally finished reading Pride and Prejudice and watched Bride and Prejudice, the Indian remake, and the 2005 iconic film. Let's talk about it. So, I want to say April, I finally bought this beautiful edition of Pride and Prejudice from Barnes & Nobles. What initially drew me to this book was the fact that I've heard that it was called the OG Enemies to Lovers book. Say what you will about that. I just decided to try it out. And plus, I wanted to read a classic book this year for my reading challenge. What really shocked me the most was just how thick the book was. I think this is 376 pages, which is honestly 150 pages more than I was expecting. But nonetheless, I still pressed on after many months of picking it up, putting it down, picking up, putting it down. And overall, I thought it was a pretty good book. In case you don't know the summary of the book, basically it's about the main character, Elizabeth Bennet, who helps her sister Jane try to get married to this person named Mr. Bingley. To me, I think it's more of a love on first sight type of deal between those two, but that doesn't really matter. A person that she constantly comes across is Mr. Darcy, which is Mr. Bingley's best friend. And basically you just see how those two interact throughout the majority of the book, along with lots of walking, lots of letter reading, and writing as well. So I will admit, I had to look up on SparkNotes a couple of times to understand if I'm reading every chapter correctly, but other than that, it was pretty good. It wasn't until the end of the book that I realized that the whole point of it being called Pride and Prejudice is where Darcy's pride somewhat contracts or challenges Elizabeth's prejudice. After I finished the book, I watched both movies, Bride and Prejudice and Pride and Prejudice. The difference between the two is that Bride and Prejudice was made in 2004, and it's actually an Indian remake and a bit of a musical as well, while Pride and Prejudice is the iconic 2005 film. So Bride and Prejudice, I watched that when I was a young girl with my grandma, and it was always been a nice treasured memory of mine. Particularly what I learned rewatching this movie was how it addresses not only just the class difference between Darcy and Lalita, which is basically the Elizabeth character in their movie. They also address race and how Darcy is, an American coming to Indian society, and he makes a lot of racially ignorant comments, which really surprised me watching this again. I feel like Lalita does a really good job of not only connecting with the Elizabeth character from the original book, but she does a really good job showing her interaction with all of her sisters. Particularly my favorite song in that movie was No Life Without Wife. I feel like within the book, you get that interaction with mostly Elizabeth and Jane because they are the older two sisters, and you get more of her other sisters, Kitty and I want to say Lydia, towards the end of the book. While this movie, they did a good job of showing their interaction throughout the entire movie. Her younger sister, Lydia, I don't remember the Indian character's name for that, but that character in a whole, she actually had a pretty happy ending in that movie. I was actually expecting her, not really downfall, but I was expecting her traditional ending in the book to be translated into the Indian movie, but instead it was just Wickham who truly got what he deserved, which I honestly appreciate that, because when you look into the storyline with Lydia and Wickham, she was kind of forced into it, even though in her childlike mind, she thought she was doing what was best by her, and she was being a trendsetter at the time. So yeah, next would be the 2005 iconic film Pride and Prejudice. I actually got the pleasure of watching this with my boyfriend, and we both were really surprised with how good not only the characters and the acting was, but the cinematography and how it really held up to this day and age. Honestly, I have no complaints. Yeah, I have no complaints really about the movie so far. I think that's one of the best adaptations, book to movie adaptations I've ever seen. Darcy, I liked his mood set. I feel like I can see why a lot of people are still thinking back onto Darcy as a romance character, being their Roman Empire, if you will. I feel like he did a good job of being moody. He was very stoic. But at the same time, what I loved about the film is that they showed his interest into her long before she realized he was interested into her. And I feel like that's what a lot of books in particular needs to start doing, because typically in enemies to lover books, you get either one perspective or you get the third person point of view, which is preferred, honestly. But you get the female's perspective, and you see how the guy is typically a jerk to her for majority of the book until I would say 50 to 75% in, where he just all of a sudden just confesses loves to her. While in this, you really see how he's been looking out for her the entire time. You can tell from his tone. You can tell from the iconic hand grasping scene. That he really likes her. So I don't know. I really want that to come back into books, and maybe they are. Maybe I just haven't been looking at the right places. But that's something I really enjoyed. The banter between Elizabeth and Darcy, loved it. I loved. I think her name is Keira Knightley. She did a really good job as Elizabeth as well. I loved how she knew how to shut him up, and I love how he allowed her to keep going with it as well too. I know during that day and age, it's not typically looked up upon, but I thought she did a really good job. The music as well was really great too. Like I said, it kind of gave me a Bridgerton vibe, so it was kind of nice seeing how I was semi-correct within that age range. Maybe a couple of things could have been tweaked out, but hey, I feel like that was still good when reading this book. Now thinking about it, my only critique, and this is probably because it was 2005, there was a little too many awkward pauses in the movie, but I would like to think of it as it being more organic, and especially with the scene where Darcy comes in to Elizabeth's room and he just stares at her. I think that was nice in a way, but when you really think about it, in this day and age, I don't think that would have been that attractive unless you really knew the person for like a long time. But yeah, just him just staring at her like.
Mr. Darcy. Please do be seated.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, I think we could have done without that. Yeah, but that was basically it. Out of the three, I would have to honestly rank it as 2005 on top, of course. Then 2004, Pride and Prejudice. And then, making third, the iconic book itself. Will I read this book again? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that I won't reference this book at all, though. I think this is a good class to start off with. And honestly, it has me more excited to read other classic, maybe a little bit shorter, but but I think this was pretty good. So, and if you have any comments or anything you agreed with, disagree with me, please put them in the comments below. I like to know everyone's thoughts about it. And if you have any other insight of other books where you get to see a detailed depth of how the main character, or not main character, the male main character yearns for the female main character in a non-toxic way. Yeah, in a non-toxic way, please let me know as well too. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye guys.